All right, we are back with another special edition for you. Our special guest is a world renowned expert in the world of PR, digital marketing, and so much more from Cyber PR. Please welcome Ariel Hyatt.
Hello.
Ariel, and we must say you are a proud author. We are loving your book. It is called From Buzz to Bond: How to Stop Chasing Hype and Build a Lasting Music Career. What a great guide. I mean, this is industry standard. Everybody needs a copy of this book. She's going to discuss some highlights and want to see everybody go get it. Now, you talk about coming on 30 years into business, and me being 50, we can't explain to people how the business changed. Of course, when I was breaking bands back in the 70s, 80s, we had no cell phones, no internet, no computers, no texting, no social media, no email.
No.
So the first thing people do when I tell them that at these conferences, when I see the smoke coming out of their ears and their jaws on the floor, I'm like, it's a people business. You have to create personal relationships. You have to deal with people one on one. It's not all in the digital world, or even then, you have to create that email or text. You have to create the relationships. We did it with phone calls and in-person visits, whether it be a radio station, a journalist, a concert hall, a record store, whatever it was one-on-one. So talk a little bit about, even though we have these digital tools now, how it is still important, those interpersonal relationships.
It's everything. And this is the problem with digital. The problem with digital, and you don't need to look much further than this loneliness epidemic that we're all reading so much about, hearing so much about, and maybe if you're watching or listening to this right now, you're experiencing it. The loneliness epidemic started way before COVID, before we were pulled apart and had to stay separate to stay alive. The problem is social media makes us feel like we are connecting, and in some ways it does, but that's right. The old school way that you and I started was pick up the damn phone, get on the call, get the person on the horn, run into the person at the show, and don't be afraid to go run them down at the bar or backstage or wherever they were. And that art of in-person communication is somewhat lost when the only way you're communicating is via DM or text or on social platforms. And my book talks a lot about this, about during our loneliness epidemic, which we're all in right now, we need to connect. And if you're going to survive in today's music world, you have to have a knack for connection. You have to figure out how to do it well and how to do it often and how to stay in touch. And especially now in the race to the bottom for, if you think about the value of a YouTube stream, the value of a Spotify stream, you're not going to get paid unless you figured out how to do this in the millions and billions, right? You're going to get paid from a crowdfunding campaign or a Patreon campaign or by playing live and people buying tickets to your shows. These are all things that involve having a community of real life butts that can get in seats. And that's the key.
Yeah, it is so, so important. We have this barrage of social media and these internet stimuli, these texts, these posts, all this stuff that hits us all day long, and we're numb. We're numb
Yeah.
to, you know, um, who's behind it? What does it mean? Well, back in the day, it was hard enough when I started doing promotions, there were there was maybe 15, 20 labels, Warner Brothers, Atlantic, Arista, CBS, all that, and there was about maybe a combined 50 maybe 55, 60 releases per month across the industry.
Mm,
Warner Brothers might have five or six, or Atlantic might have four, or Chrysalis had three that month, or, together there was, maybe 50, 60 releases per month. Now there's 50 or 60,000 in a few hours going up.
I know.
How do you stand
Insane.
out from that?
That's the question. And that's the puzzle to solve. And I think we already answered it. Question one, top of this conversation. How you stand out is through your ability to connect. And it's not only about that, it's also how do you make your fans feel connected? How do you put them in a sanctuary where they understand that they found their people? And it doesn't have to be a deep thing, right? You don't have to be like solving the world's problems or being a social justice warrior or, g going heavy. People want to get together to dance. People want to get together to drink. People want to get together to just be in community. It doesn't have to be, well, I don't have this super deep, meaningful, like music is connects us in so many different ways on so many levels in our physiology. You just need to tap into one thing that makes people want to be together around your art, and that's going to be your solution.
Yeah, people want to feel like they're part of a group, a community where they can express themselves, understand others, an exchange of information, but at the heart of it, feel like they're wanted, they're welcome, that they're actually identified. They're not just a bot or a email or a line item on a spreadsheet, that they're actually, part of an extended family.
Totally.
Mm. Well, let's talk about the state of social media because you look at it, and of course, we have Meta, which has Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. And you have, of course, this thing that we called Twitter and now called X. And we have this thing called TikTok, this crazy thing from China. Um, talk a little bit about what you feel the importance of each of these platforms are, and more importantly, where they're heading. Are they is there trending up? Are they trending down? Are there roadblocks or hazard signals in the future? Or how do how do you define these? And something like TikTok, is it mainly young people? For us baby boomers, do we are we on TikTok? Do we need to care about that? Talk about it.
That was a lot of questions in one. And I was someone who was very early to the social media party, and I was out banging my drum, telling any musician that would listen in 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009. That was when I first published my first book called Music Success in 9 Weeks, which was a social media primer. It had a lot to do with getting on Twitter. I had over 80 or 90,000 followers at Twitter in my heyday. I met so many friends on that platform. It was the connecting platform, and it was revelatory in that as a traditional publicist, Twitter was the place that knocked down all the walls, like all those journalists that you could never get a hold of unless you had a magical Rolodex and a lot of history. People were all of a sudden able to communicate with them. And it was a great time for that few-year window when it wasn't owned by a psychotic megalomaniac. So then, as we saw, we started getting addicted to platforms. Facebook at first felt really exciting. I was connecting with all kinds, we were all connecting with all kinds of people we hadn't heard from in years. And it was a place for real community and connection, and everybody could see where, when you posted something, everybody could see it. Then, of course, advertising stepped in and paying for things stepped in, and the picture began to change. And the irresponsibility levels started going up on all these platforms. And we started realizing these platforms are not safe for young people. They're certainly not safe for young women. We can see the detrimental effects that an Instagram has on a young woman, especially. Um, and then we started seeing danger and addiction and bad things happening on these platforms. And then as creators, we started getting squeezed out. So the MySpace conversation back in the day, like, oh, I worked so hard to build this platform and had all these friends and followers, and then boom, overnight it was all gone. We saw the same thing happen on Facebook and Instagram, where if you didn't begin to have an ad strategy and you didn't start paying these platforms, who, by the way, are owned by extremely irresponsible, not good people, we started seeing problems and having problems. And I still giggle when I'm having conversations with musicians who say, well, I don't like Facebook, it's all old people, but I'm on Instagram all day long. I don't know if you realize that they're owned by the same people. So it's the same thing, it's just a different flavor of communication on the thing.
They're on the
I
same menu, just different items.
Exactly right. Just because the Chinese restaurant serves French fries, it's all from the same fryer, right? It's the same thing. So this is not great. I'm not happy about any of this. It really upsets me. I see so many, I mean, Daniel Ek investing $600 million in warfare, in weaponry. Like he took music and made it war, literally. That's the new news. uh, None of us should be okay with any of it. And yet we're all here on these platforms, consistently using them. Many, many artists express to me constantly that they know that these platforms aren't great and they're expensive and they're not easy to navigate, but yet they feel they need to be on them. Only a very few rarefied artists can take themselves off of every platform and still expect to exist in the world and connect. So we're addicted to them, and that's not good. So you have to be on them. My advice, especially in buzz to bond, when we talk about the differences between buzz marketing, which would be something like running a Spotify promotion where you're trying to get a lot of plays. Buzz marketing is also running, boosted ads so you're or boosted post campaign posts where you're upping your numbers and your eyeballs, but you're not really getting more real traction. You're just getting more numbers and more eyeballs, and your money is sort of like a slot machine, just sort of going somewhere, and you're not really quite sure of what the payoff is, but you're getting a free drink once in a while, so you keep paying. This is buzz marketing. This is the problem. And yes, we can make the argument that we do still need to be on these platforms. This is where people are connecting, but really, the value is going to be in the long term. Do you own your email list? Do you own a text message list? Do you actually have the mailing address? Let's go old school of where your fans are living. These are questions you should ask, and this is what you should be striving towards. Absolutely use these platforms, but use them to get to the other goal. And the other goal should most certainly be, how can you parlay that into ownership? How can you own your little shingle on the internet? That means your own website. How can you build an email list where people care and they're opening emails? That's bond marketing. And that's where you need to also focus your attention. I meet too many creators and artists that are focusing all of their attention on Spotify campaigns. And then I say, well, how many people can you put into your hometown? They could maybe do 50, 100 people. But then I say, okay, what's the next town over or what's in your region? And they can't even do that. So that means you're not building a sticky audience. And that's where the bond marketing needs to come into play.
Well, it's so important. Like you say, if you don't own the email list or an address list or some kind of direct contact, we could wake up tomorrow and TikTok is down. U.S. government has banned it. A maniac buys Twitter and changes the name, and there's half the staff, if not more, leave the company, and
And their integrity. I mean, do
Yeah,
you
it
like, do
becomes
you want
a
to be,
racist,
yeah,
hate-filled.
like, is this where you want to promote your music in a racist, hate-filled Nazi camp? Like, okay, like really think about that. And the very bad news that is recently about AI is Meta is using AI to figure out how to be more sticky. How can we get people more addicted to the platform? How can we have them stay there longer? They have predictability capability that you don't even know is happening. And so these are irresponsible platform owners that really don't care about our well-being. They care more about how to make more money, get more eyeballs, and satisfy more investors. This is where we really need to be aware of what is happening and do less of it. Figure out how do you do more of the old school connectivity in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, we hear artists complain all day long about, oh, Spotify's not really paying anything. Well, I I see both sides of it. I remind them they came in as an alternative to Napster where nobody paid for anything. At least artists, somebody has gotten paid billions of dollars from Spotify. Maybe it doesn't trickle down enough to the independent artists, but that was an alternative that they gave to the major labels. Like, all right, right now, everybody can steal all your music all day long and you'll never make anything. We'll pay you to have access to your catalog. So they are a necessary evil in that way. But I always feel there needs to be competition. If you're the big fish and there's very little competition in your sea there, you can pay out as little as you want and charge as much as you want. I think competition is very important. I think, people need to know YouTube is owned by Google. They're a massive
Right.
trillion-dollar company, and there needs to be competition for Spotify and YouTube and all this to kind of balance this out. And maybe it's tough to compete with these giants, but there has to be choices for people, I think, for the future. So it's not like, all right, well, you don't have a choice. You got to do this and you got to do that. And there's really no options.
Yep, for sure.
Talk a little bit about TikTok. I know it's important, and certainly the younger artists, the younger people, and I know it has its value. I know how there's talk that it may be changed. They may force them to be American owned for the American audience. Um, but talk about what is good about TikTok and what isn't. And like I mentioned earlier, if I'm marketing music to the baby boomers, 40, 50-year-olds and up, are those people really on TikTok that much, or are they Facebook, Instagram, and X?
Okay, so this is the thing. With billions of users in all of these platforms, some people are going to be older on any of them. But of course, TikTok, there was a Luminate report that found that 84% of the th songs that entered the Billboard Global 200 in 2024 actually went viral on TikTok first. So it's non-negotiable that like it does TikTok, is it a massive driver for music discovery, for streaming? Yes. Artists that are tied to TikTok do see week over week streaming growth. So that's also true. And then TikTok users in the US are apparently more likely to have paid for a music streaming subscription, and they do spend more money per month on music than the average listener. Now, spending $9.99 on Spotify to me doesn't really equate. Like if you think about, I used to spend a vast majority of my paycheck because I worked at a record store, like buying more records. And everyone I know that came from the old school music industry had a very expensive collection of music. And so you can't compare the two at all. But basically, TikTok did and does drive, but TikTok's algorithms probably aren't designed to show you those who are struggling, right? There's only that sort of pinnacle, the very successful ones that bubbled up to the top. And so looking successful on TikTok also doesn't necessarily mean that you are successful. Um, if you I know there were some amazing Reddit threads where artists were saying, I had national radio play, but my main income was still stocking produce at a grocery store. And so, you know, there is you have to take this huge reach, strong streaming impact with a major, major grain of salt. And then, yes, the conversation about older people, younger people are on TikTok for sure. And the age demographic skews way younger. Of course, there are older people using it, and we're not all not using it because we're over a certain age. But you have to take all of this into consideration and realize, like, is the Billboard Global 200 the way that we even look at or care about music nowadays? And is that important? I mean, most of my clients that are self-sustaining artists that make a living full-time as musicians that sell tickets, that have a community, that do crowdfunding campaigns, that tour globally, some regionally, some nationally, some, most of them have not had a Billboard hit. So those two things are separate. And so you have to really ask, like, if you're really big in the Americana folk music scene or the children's music scene, or you're making your money in a niche community, um, does Billboard care? Does TikTok come into your picture? I think what is non-negotiable and what we do know is people do love short form video, and people are interacting with short form video, and they find it on Facebook, they find it on IG, they find it on TikTok. So that you do have to do. But I think, like, if you're older and you're like looking to figure out where your next is going to be, I'm not sure that doubling down on recording dozens and dozens of videos on TikTok on a weekly basis and posting them is going to be the best solution for you.
Understood. Talk about the advent of now these shorts and reels, Facebook, Instagram, both Meta products, platforms. These short form videos, um, how's the best way to utilize them, and what's the importance of that?
I mean, there's no clear-cut answer for that. You know, some younger artists would say do it a very, very specific way. Some older artists would say, no, we do it that way. I think you have to pick the right content types that work for you as an artist. So there are some reliable categories, I suppose, that you could work with, like performance, for example. I always notice, especially with actually, no, all of my artists, if you're showing yourself performing, like in a studio, holding a guitar, playing your piano, singing from a place where it really comes from the heart, people like that. People love that. People want to see that you are an actual artist, and that works. Um, and then of course there's always like start at the lyrics, start at the hook, don't start at an intro, don't bore people at the first 3 seconds. You do actually also have to know like the dynamics of short form video and what works, but also maybe connecting directly to your fans is the way that you're going to do it, answering a comment or duetting together or shouting out someone who's using your track. Or, of course, you can also jump on trends. Again, what I'm basically getting at here is like there's no one size fits all solution. The thing that I've seen now that I've been sitting on the other side of the desk for all these years was every it moves much faster than it used to, but I think you'll also relate to what I'm about to say, Jay. Like back in the day, the first true indie artist that like broke through and was like the model that everyone was like, oh my gosh, like look at this, was Ani DeFranco, right? She had her
Oh
own
yeah.
record label, she was releasing, she was touring constantly, she was like getting bigger and bigger and bigger. She was doing it 100% on her own. There was no label deal, there was no major anything. It was like literally a homespun, homegrown cottage thing. And, when I saw that, that was like the case study that everyone would bring to the phone call. Well, Ani DeFranco's doing it. And then you kind of you saw that repeat itself in different iterations in the punk rock world. It was a certain band that was doing it in the hippie jam world. There was a bunch of bands that were doing it, and people would start sort of finding success. And now what I see is the last few months, especially, people have been talking about Brendan Boone. I think that's his name. Is it Brendan Boone? Let me see. I'm actually using Google, but he is it Brendan Boone? There is a new musician. Hold on. Google's going to be my friend. And he wears jumpsuits. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I
And he
can't.
played at the Grammys. Brendan, oh my
I'm
God, I didn't drink enough
specify his
coffee
name.
before I started talking to you. Hold on, let's see. Um, he basically he flipped over a couch in a video
Uh-huh.
and it went viral on TikTok. And what ended up happening is we learned that he made um many, many, many iterations of this kind of video. He made multiple videos of this, like I think 100 different takes of kind of the same thing. And this was the formula that worked. This was the formula that got the attention. Like he kept sort of doing the same couch flipping. He's like a gymnast and he's also wildly talented. Um, and that is the new formula that everyone is talking to me about. They're like, they all want to do that. And I have all these social media strategists who my bands hire and they talk about, this couch flipping. And I'm like, oh, okay, um is this like this is sort of the new thing that everyone's talking about this month.
Yeah,
Um
you got to do something that stands out, but not everybody's a gymnast.
right, but I mean it's like just because it happened once for this person doesn't mean that that's going to work for you,
Right.
right? So it's
Yeah,
like
it's like
that
okay,
thing
go and
already
those videos they were doing,
that
they
already
they
went
found a
viral.
niche.
Like that's done. Like that's done. So um this is the thing.
You have to find your lane, your niche, what how to stand out.
Exactly. Exactly. It's really annoying me that I can't remember his name at this moment, but it will come back.
Okay, we can insert later. Talk
Yes, would be
about
amazing.
talk about, Facebook or, these platforms that ask you to pay to boost your post. Is it effective? Is it risky? Are there alternatives to that?
Boosting posts. I mean, if you want people to actually see your posts, you're likely going to have to boost them. Um, that is the deal. And so this is the what I call in my book. His name is Benson Boone. Sorry. Thank
Okay.
you. The internet just answered me.
Ding, ding, ding.
Um, he was brilliant and he does do this signature backflip off the piano and he's also gorgeous and cool to look at and he wears very cool jumpsuits,
Uh-huh.
but he had a social media strategy and that was the thing that like got him to the Grammys basically.
Now, when
um
when you're paying to boost these posts, are there algorithms or tag words or how 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 do you know that it's kind of boosting to your audience?
That's the thing. Like, do you know that? Like, so the boosting,
Is
we
it
can
just
go
boosting to
back.
people, or is it boosting to your people that you're trying to reach?
Exactly. So boosting is necessary. If you want people to see you on social media, boosting or ad campaigns is necessary. Why? Because the organic algorithm is not going to cut it. So, like I said at the top of this interview, back in the day, everyone pretty much saw everything that we posted all the time. That was the design. And then all of the platform owners figured out, oh, if we squeeze these people out and we only show 2%, 3%, 4%, 5% of the entire audience the thing, they will pay us for 10%, 20%, 30% and more to start seeing it. So they figured out that they could squeeze us for ads and for getting money. And that's whenever you have that as like the operational playbook, you have a problem because just getting onto the platforms doesn't get you the exposure. It's the paying for the ads and paying for the exposure. And I see this across every artist online. Like right now, I'm working for a household name artist, and they have sold millions of records. They have recorded 17 or 18 studio albums. They have traveled the world. About 12 years ago, they disappeared from the world because one of the leads of the band had a major health issue, and they basically never went on Instagram because it wasn't a thing. They had a big following on Facebook, but their Facebook page went quiet, and it has been fascinating helping this band come back to life online, just posting really good organic content about the band, about their history, about their number one hits, about their global tours, about all the people they used to know back in the day. I mean, there's so much. I have an entire library of stuff to post. Nobody cared. Nobody was following. Nobody was liking. The pickup was so minimal. It was so depressing. It wasn't until we started doing a major paid boosted post strategy that this band started picking up. And so it just goes to show you, like, even if you've already done all the work, um, you realize you got to pay the piper, and the piper
Yeah.
is all the gatekeepers.
Now you were
So
boosting on all the platforms.
we no,
Like,
we were boosting just on Instagram because our
okay,
Facebook page was locked out. It took me, someone who actually knows people that work at Facebook and at distribution companies, it took me 6 months to get his Facebook page unlocked. I mean, it was insane. It was a painful exercise in realizing that even when you know people, even though you are who you say you are, if the platform doesn't trust who you are going to have trouble getting legit answers from these platforms. And that was another like major wake up call, was realizing how painful that was for my client. We finally got his Facebook page unlocked, but it took so much doing. It was really stressful.
understood.
And there were hundreds of thousands of people waiting there, and we couldn't get it unlocked.
Let me ask you about, YouTube is obviously a big platform to post your music videos, post your podcast, post things like that. Um, we know there's benefit in YouTube, but also again, this is owned by Google. They want to make money. There's ads galore on YouTube. And there's the danger of getting your YouTube channel taken down.
Yep.
What are some of the things that people have to be aware of potentially losing their channel, or like you just said, having to fight to get it back?
I think I don't see it as much with YouTube. I mean, if you're an idiot and you don't clear your music, you could get in trouble for posting cover songs that aren't cleared. That's not where I really worry. YouTube getting taken away. What we see much more of is Spotify getting taken away, and a lot of artists coming to us saying, I didn't do anything. I hired a Spotify playlisting company a year ago, 6 months ago, 5 months ago, and all of a sudden I got a takedown notification from my distributor that my promotion was botted and that I was breaking the rules. But I never, some of my clients that got their music taken away, they never even hired a botted company or any company at all. And they got takedown notification and they got their music removed from Spotify, which is horrifying, like, and really upsetting. And once it's down, it can't go back up easily. So that's a nightmare. And that we're seeing constantly. And
I mean, if you did nothing, I mean, again, I know it's a fight, but what angle do you have? What leverage?
yeah, you have none. You have no leverage. You write the letter saying, I didn't do it. And then you send it to CD Baby, who sends it to them saying they didn't do it. And then no one cares. So that, that's another like sort of major lesson in buzz versus bond. My book is called From Buzz to Bond for a reason. Like we have to go from what we're doing right now, which is broken, and you can get a cog in your wheel and you can get your music taken off Spotify. That's a problem. But if you served the music to the 300, 400, 500, 1,000 people who actually really know you, like you, trust you, you can text them from your phone because there's someone you met and they're in your phone. You can email them and the email will be seen. Then it's a different story. Then it's a different conversation. And the conversation that started years ago with Kevin Kelly, 1,000 true fans. If you had 1,000 fans and each one paid $100 a year, you would have a sustainable life of $100,000 a year income as a musician, as a maker, as a creator. I still believe so strongly and deeply in that. Create your micro niche of besties that will come forward and support you. And even I, as an author, the irony, this book From Buzz to Bond was supposed to come out at the end of June, and I worked with a book co-publishing distributor. Unbeknownst to me, they used an outsource to another distribution company. I paid them for distribution. They didn't even do the distribution. On the day my book came out, every single one of my Amazon orderers, and the book went to number 1 in the music business category. And I worked really hard to get it there with promo and marketing. The book didn't land. It didn't get delivered. And I called freaking out. I called the distribution company and I said, what happened? And they said, the book is still sitting here in our warehouse. We're sorry. We have no idea when Amazon is going to come pick it up. And so again, it's back to this lesson of these major platforms don't care about individual creators. You are just a number to them. Amazon cares just as much about my book as they do about a random t-shirt manufacturer in China. And if there's something broken in the supply chain, it's broken. And so how ironic that I wrote this whole book about don't rely on these major platforms for your livelihood, and it happened to me. So again, I have to use Amazon. A ton of people already bought my books on Amazon over the years. They've got their credit card stored there. They want to, press one button and have it delivered to their house without putting their credit card number in somewhere else. I get it. That's behavior that is going to be really hard to change. Just like if I pay $9 a month to get all the music in the world on Spotify, I likely am not going to pay additional money for a single for an artist that I'm not deeply connected to or an artist I don't really care about. So the monetization is flipped on its head. And so we have a problem and we need to figure out how do you make it more sustainable for yourself as a creator. And that means you cannot rely on solely using these platforms. I have conversations every day with musicians that call me and say, I release music, I'm on Spotify, they're on all the places, they're on Bandcamp, they're on all the social sites. They don't have control over their own websites. They have no control over their own email list. They don't have text messaging lists. I don't understand how you think you can have a career if you actually don't have fans that you can communicate with. That's not a career. That's a fantasy. That's a buzz-driven fantasy. And so in my book, I talk about these marketing, I call them buzz marketing danger loops. And they are I release music, I pay Meta, I make my ads, I drive people to come to Spotify to listen to my music. And then I pay Meta again and I do it 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 again. And you're in a loop. You're in a loop. You're in a loop. And the loop is making Mark Zuckerberg and Daniel Ek rich and making you broke. It's making you just put money into that marketing loop slot machine that maybe someone really, really falls in love with you. They might seek you out and DM you on a platform, but likely you are not going to figure out who your fans are by just doing buzz marketing danger loop advertising. And that is where I see a vast majority of artists spending too much time, too much energy, too much effort. And back to your question about TikTok, TikTok has a dopamine hit program where if you post consistently enough on TikTok, the algorithm will reward you with a big giant payday. You might even get 1 million views. Something will go viral on TikTok, and that feels like the biggest dopamine hit of your life. Like it's sugar and caffeine and drugs all at once to your brain. It's going to keep you addicted to TikTok. It is not likely going to get you more fans. I've seen multiple clients get 1 million or more views on posts on TikTok and they have no fans to show for it.
Got it. Well, now I see on YouTube there's some very successful podcasts that don't wait to get necessarily paid by YouTube. They insert their own commercials in the middle of their programs. Um, have you heard that as a successful? I mean, you obviously have to have the audience. I mean,
Of course.
these
Yeah,
companies aren't going to
sponsorship.
pay unless you have big
Correct.
numbers. They may even be paying you per click, on those
That's right.
videos they sponsor. Um, but that seems to be an alternative because the two biggest platforms in music is Spotify and YouTube, in a sense, and both of them are known for paying next to nothing.
Right.
Crumbs.
Right. Right. So then you do have to go for sponsorship. And then what's the sponsor going to ask you? How many subscribers do you have? Do you have an email list? Could you, when you put out your episode, send an email to all your listeners and let them know that it's happening? No one is immune from this. No one, not writers, not artists. There's no one that's getting any kind of money deal unless they can prove that they have an audience, that they have their hands and hearts and arms around. That is key for all creators.
Yeah. Well, we've seen Twitter, aka X, take a big hit with the advertisers, with the employees. Do you think they'll bounce back, or do you see other competitors potentially coming up in that space?
I don't think they're going to bounce back. I think people have abandoned that platform. They don't have much faith in it. We've got Blue Sky now. We've got Threads now, which again owned by Instagram and Facebook and Meta. So, Threads, a lot of people say, oh, it feels like Twitter used to feel. Everybody sees my things and I'm having actual conversations. Please remember who owns Threads. Like it's really, really hard once we're all addicted to the gold standard platforms. It's really, really hard to have a brand new one come and break through, as we've seen.
Yeah. And as we know, most of the real money in the music business these days is touring and merchandising. So you
That's right.
have to have that real audience. A bunch of views on TikTok or X or Instagram don't necessarily put the asses in seats and a line at the merch booth.
Not at all.
Obviously, it's a marathon. There's no sprint, there's no shortcut. You have to do the real work to build the real audience. Obviously for the first time in our industry, catalog music, aka heritage artists, box sets, greatest hits, are outselling the new artists. You can be number one on the Billboard, Hot 100 and be a nobody next year. For those heritage artists, for people trying to reach that classic rock or classic hip hop or classic alternative audience, what advice do you give to them for social media?
I mean, again, there's a certain age that I think people reach, and they are not wildly open to new music. That's a reality. That's why when you turn on Sirius XM, there is like a Tom Petty channel, a Bruce Springsteen channel. There's a Dave Matthews channel. There's not a like here's a band you've never heard of, emerging artist channel. It's not a thing. So we've also seen these billion-dollar deals that have been going on with the big catalogs, right? Bruce Springsteen, 500 million, Bob Dylan, 500 million, Queen, $1.2 billion for Queen's full catalog. That's insane. And it's like there's this crazy kind of private equity asset management giants like BlackRock that are buying out these very few artists, but you have to like ask, like, is that gonna be possible for like an emerging artist who's just trying to get a small toehold? Maybe someday, but you can't compare the giants that have been famous for 20, 30, 40 years. I think what you can do is figure out how to market to a fan of a certain genre, a certain artist in particular. How do you attach yourself so that you understand, like, okay, this community of fans that really, really loves Tom Petty might actually really, really love what you're doing, but
Uh,
realize that older people might not necessarily be jumping on the, oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear all about brand new music I've never heard of, train. You have to be really careful when you're creating a strategy for marketing. And again, we always say at my agency at Cyber PR, it has to come from home. You cannot buy your way into getting fans. There's no magical jump to the front of the line. I mean, I have quite a few very wealthy older dude clients where they were lucky enough to make their money in, doing other things. They're older now and they're coming back to recording. They were younger and when they did it when they were younger and they left it for a long time. They're back now with a lot of money, and I see them spend inordinate sums of money, and they sometimes don't end up getting the the fan base that aligns with what they think they should have or what their instinct tells them. It is harder to get older people who are set in their ways to pay attention unless you're really strategic about it, for sure.
yeah, that's very interesting. And of course, we know you from years back running the traditional PR campaigns, trying to get an artist to get write-ups and all that. And you've changed over recent years. Like that business has changed a lot. Now there's a lot of podcasts on social media. There's less blogs and more of those popular shows. How do you advise someone that has a story or maybe is a good speaker to get out there and get interviewed on more talk shows and podcasts?
So, luckily there are quite a few platforms that you can sign up to where you can connect yourself to podcasts. That is one way that artists can do it. I think also like traditional PR is not dead, despite what, music industry gurus like to say. It's not the almighty king it once was for sure, but there is definitely a part of the pie that I think it's still very important to go for critical acclaim, to tell your story to the media, to get on music blogs or podcasts. And again, it goes back to relationships. It goes back to understanding who you're talking to And that's where, AI can be really helpful and also detrimental because now people are going to be more overwhelmed than ever before with, I mean, I just think about how many AI emails I get every week of people promising that they're going to get me new clients for my agency or I have a podcast myself. I'm an infrequent podcast recorder, but I have had a podcast on and off for years. I get weekly, and you probably do too, these AI communication saying, well, I can help make your podcast go to number one. So, there's a lot of ways that AI is going to get really smart and helping with sales and with marketing. So that's not a bad thing if you're an independent artist looking to figure out how to crack in to get more podcast interviews. But honestly, I think it's about being really mindful, knowing who you're targeting, and it's also, again, about your network. I'm here on your podcast. You've known me for years, but it wasn't until Bobby Owsinski recommended
Sure.
that you talk to me like, oh, yes, it comes from friends. It comes from word of mouth. It comes from relationships. And that's how the world works. And anyone that thinks they're going to succeed in our industry without a little help from our friends, I think you need to have a reality check here. Like, you would never have thought of me, even though you've known me for years, had you not blank asked Bobby, hey, who should I chat with? Who's got something going on?
Hmm.
And that's how the world works. That's how all of this works. So think about, who are you connecting with? Who are you collaborating with? If being on podcasts is what you really want to do, you better start researching, okay, what are the great podcasts and how can I start figuring out how to at least know what they are so you can invite yourself to the party.
Yeah, you have to have something to offer them. They're not just going to have you on to promote your product or something. There's got to be an angle that benefits their audience, and at the same time, of course, they're going to mention your new book, your new record, your TV show, your premiere, whatever it is. But it has to be a win-win scenario. They're not just, again, there's things that you can buy to automatically get on, but anybody can do that. So how great is that? You're trying to get
Right.
on those platforms that can't be bought, that
Right.
literally has to have an angle or a story that they're going to want to feature you on.
Right.
Now, obviously, to get on the road, you have to have an audience. But there's promotional tours. You can go out there and in conjunction with your social media, let them know, hey, I'm going to be in San Diego on Tuesday, in Orange County on Wednesday, and I'm going to be in Hollywood on Thursday, and literally try and press the flesh. Maybe find a small venue where you don't have to pay to play to get on. Maybe there's no charge at the door. Maybe you have CDs or T-shirts or something to sell, and figure out how to, bond before you announce that tour. Where yeah, it's $25-$40 at the door, and two drink minimum, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's key. You have to create the bond, and that's exactly what you're talking about. From Buzz to Bond. What an incredible book. Our special guest is the one and only Ariel Hyatt, Cyber PR, How to Stop Chasing the Hype and Build a Lasting Music Career. We can't thank you enough. We appreciate all the experiences we've shared together over the years. I know there's more to come. We used to have all these music conventions, there's very few now, but you have to get out there and create something that's real. Ariel, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate all that you've done. And until we speak again, best of luck on the book, and can't thank you enough for all that you've done.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.